Local elections matter. They significantly impact this community we share. Information on candidates can be hard to find and is oftentimes reduced to short sound bites without context. This is why the Avalon Foundation has teamed up with the Talbot Spy to bring you a series of interviews with all of the candidates for Talbot County Council. This is our opportunity to provide you a complete and unbiased profile of the candidates and their platforms. These interviews will air daily on MCTV at 8 a.m. and again at 2:30 p.m. and will be available online at youtube.com/Midshore Community Television, where you'll be able to explore their answers at your own pace and on your own time. Work like this is supported by viewers like you. Please visit avalonfoundation.org to find out how you can help.
Hey, thanks for doing this. I always try to start this out in terms of getting a sense of your history, and I know that you and your family have been here for a long time, but refresh my memory on the Divilio gang.
Sure, yeah. So Frank Divilio, thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate the opportunity. I was born and raised here at Easton Memorial Hospital, the same hospital where my father practiced medicine. He was an ER physician there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and graduated from Easton High School and went through all the public schools here. My mother was a teacher at Easton Elementary School.
Oh.
She's retired. Both of them are still living here.
Yeah.
And my wife also graduated from Easton High School. She's from Tunis Mills.
Oh.
And we're fortunate her parents also still live here too. So,
Oh.
yeah, we're very fortunate in that regard. And I've got two young boys. They are 6 and 8. They go to Chapel District Elementary School out in Cordova. So,
Good things about that school.
it's a great little school. All the schools are fantastic and very different in their own right, but fantastic schools.
So did you take off for school? Did you come back to the Eastern Shore? Most kids kind of take off thinking they'll never come back, and then they immediately come back.
Right. Yes, I did. I went to Salisbury University, graduated, have a degree in interdisciplinary studies, and after that came back and I went to work for two of the State Farm agents here in town. And after that, I started my own office, started from scratch up on Kent Island.
And how long have you been doing that?
So it'll be 10 years in February.
Well, that's significant. That's how long I've been with the Spy.
Okay.
Well, and I know that I've seen you, I think the last time I saw you was at the Republican Forum during the primary.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's clear that you have great affection for Talbot County. But there's a big difference between caring about and loving a place and then running for office.
Right.
As far as I can tell. And so I'm always curious about when you decided to run. Was there an issue that you particularly threw you for a curve and you wanted to get in the arena?
I've always been active. I've always enjoyed following the politics here. Much more active over in Annapolis. We go over for every session, all the State Farm agents do. And we have somewhat of a small lobby organization, and we know what bills are coming up affecting insurance or banking or any of the products that we deal with. And they've always been receptive. It's been great dealing with Jeannie Hadaway when she was there, and Colburn, and I realized how much they appreciate hearing from us, and they don't know anything about insurance or those issues, and I realized that having constituents come over and speak and have an idea of how to pass a bill that they want written a certain way, it got me very excited for a long time. And then I've been following the local politics for just as many years as I've been out of college, and I felt like now was a good time. My kids are young enough; they're not the most athletic, so I have most of the evenings open.
Oh, right.
So I thought this was a good fit and a good time for me to do this.
So there wasn't one particular issue; it was just your own sense of timing and.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and there are issues, and so I kind of go through them kind of one by one, but I can't avoid talking about Amendment 4 and this decision that was made by the council that turned out to be quite controversial. And I would be curious what you think about this push for water and sewer out to the Bay 100 and some of these other challenges.
That was discussed last night. We had a forum with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and of course it was on the environment. One of the questions that was from the audience was, with water and sewer being run, will that change our opinion on development rights? And those are two separate issues. Just because water or sewer is being run down there doesn't mean that we're setting things up for development. It's strictly there to try to get rid of the septic systems and try to make an effort to clean up the bay.
Why has there been so much anxiety about it then? Because I know that, I've been watching this too, and it's really gotten to be, if you look at the letters to the editor of the Spy in particular, it's very charged.
It is, because it's an emotional issue for the folks who live out in those areas. A lot of them are concerned with developments coming, and they don't want to see that. And so they get there's a perceived change that could come with this. But when you look at the zoning regulations that are put in place, they're two total separate issues.
So the one safeguards the other? I mean, because anytime you see water and sewer going anywhere, it's the ingredients that make development happen, right?
Right.
And so when you see that kind of door open, there is this suspicion that
there is, but that is just one level of infrastructure that would be put in place. That many more would need to be put in place to add a development.
So would there be any other safeguards that you would promote to kind of keep this, this kind of anxiety controlled?
I think just discussion. If people go in and look at what we've passed, the 1-to-1, they'll see that the safeguards are in place currently.
Okay. So in general, this ties into this whole issue of economic development, something that's very important to the community, and of course it's a balancing act. But this is also part of a key ingredient for economic development. You need the infrastructure, you need workforce housing, you have all these kind of competing needs. How do you balance it all?
Everything has its place, right?
Right.
And there are several pieces to the puzzle. In order for Talbot County to continue to grow, we're in competition with the counties surrounding us for all of our resources, for the firefighters, the sheriff's departments. Everybody, just like myself, when I came back here, I looked at which county I wanted to live in, where I wanted to work, where I could work, and where there were jobs and housing. I think that Talbot County has great resources. We've got some great areas where we can develop within the town, and staying close to the town. And I don't think that we need any huge projects. It doesn't seem like the population's booming at this point that we need to add another Stony Ridge style neighborhood. We do need affordable housing. That is an issue, and that is changing and getting to be a little difficult to deal with at times. We've heard from the realtors that a lot of people aren't interested in a townhouse. They want to buy a standalone single-family house, and there are limitations on what we can afford or what a builder can afford to do with that.
Right.
So I for one, I wouldn't mind seeing a condo association come up, and looking at the old granary in town on Brooklets, I think that would be a beautiful spot for a nice condo association. I don't think it would change the land much or the use and the homes that are over there. It would be excellent for the doctors and nurses to be able to walk back and forth. So there are certain areas where we can. I think that we can do it while limiting sprawl and staying within the comprehensive plan.
So shifting gears a little bit, education has also come up quite a bit, and as you know, the state has mandatory maintenance of effort mandate, and counties all across Maryland are trying to struggle to help subsidize their school budgets above maintenance of effort, and it's affected Talbot County, and I just wanted to get a sense of how you view those issues.
I've worked closely with Andy Burke and the Teachers Association. He's been a great resource for me, and I've known him for a long time, since he was my high school math teacher. And I've also been endorsed by the Teachers Association, so I'm very fortunate with that. I love our schools. My kids are there. I'm in the schools often. And I've also worked with other foundations that have helped the schools and purchased doing a ball field down in Tillman or buying soccer goals. So for chapel. So I see that the different needs that there are both in the schools, with the teachers and the resources. I want the best for my kids, and I also want to keep the taxes low enough so that we can afford to stay here. I don't want to try to set some records on that with increases. And I think there is a good balance, and I think that's what Andy and the Teachers Association with the Taxpayers Association have balanced together with the 262 budget referendum.
Do you feel like the system that the state has created is dated? Do you feel like maintenance of effort is maybe not the best method now for determining education budgets?
I haven't seen anything that would rival it to change it. I would like to. I don't know if there is a better option that's out there, and I'd love to always explore that, because I do want to make sure that we are doing the best for the teachers, and we've got a great administration as well. I know that they're working hard to stay within the budget that they have, but there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle, and there's a lot of spending that needs to kind of be monitored there and may be able to be adjusted in different areas. But also just some of the programs, it's disappointing to see that the school provides laptops for so many students, yet not everybody has broadband access, and they're going home, they might as well not even have a power cord. They can't log on, and so that's a wasted resource that I would like to see broadband expanded out. I think that would be instrumental to grow in Talbot County.
And what's holding that back, do you think?
I don't know if it's competition, if we need to try to open the door more for that, or if we should expand with Easton Utilities. Right now, it's growing. It's the other counties surrounding us are investigating, trying to figure out how they can handle it as well. So I think it's just a new expense that we're all trying to figure out what the best way to do that is.
On the economic front, are there issues that you particularly are running on? I mean, is there one or two ideas that you feel should be in place that would kind of lead to economic prosperity?
I think we've got the pieces in place right now. Cassandra is fantastic. She's got a great relationship with the council, and the council seems to have a great relationship with the town. The big question mark is the industrial parks. If you look at the one out by the airport that's sitting vacant, I mean, that was great farmland that's been converted into industrial park and has just been sitting there. And we're not going to convert it back. We've got the infrastructure put together. So I would really like to lean on some of the resources that we have so close to us around the DC Beltway and see what clean industries that we can bring over here. It's really interesting when you meet some of the government contractors who are here already. That a lot of people don't realize what industries are here that can be expanded, and unfortunately broadband is one of those main issues that's holding those up.
As you know, we're celebrating 200 years of Frederick Douglass in this county. This is a perfect time to talk about the issues of diversity and race. The Talbot County had gone through a very challenging time with the Talbot Boys statue on the courthouse lawn. And it just seems like a good time to take a snapshot of where we are, and I'd like to get your opinion on how we are moving ahead in this really important part of our life. I mean, we have not only the issues of our history and our past, but we have a whole new wave of particularly in the Latino community, of population increasing, and it's a different Talbot County than when you grew up in.
It absolutely is. I was at my son's soccer game last week back behind the middle school, and there were 3 languages spoken on the field at one time. It is. We are very diversified, and it's growing, and I think that's a good sign. I think it shows that people do want to move here, that people are finding work. You certainly don't find people moving to an area that cannot find work. And so I think that's fantastic. It's going to bring new challenges with workforce housing. And so we're starting to see that squeeze now. But yeah, I'm very proud of Talbot County, and I think that it's a great sign for us.
And how about on the history front? I mean, would you have taken a different position on the Talbot Boys? You know, it's funny because I think that this came up maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago. and it was resolved one way or the other. But in other communities, it continues to be an issue. And since it was inconclusive in many ways, in many people's minds, what the future of that statue is, I feel like it's important to talk about it.
Yeah. I think that was decided. I think it was addressed. I haven't seen any other ideas that would work for it right now that anybody's proposing. If there's a group, the Historical Society, if they want to come through with some money to do something, then I could see that. But otherwise, it seems like the county's already made a vote on that, and the council did as well.
And so people should be content with it, or is it just the nature?
Well, there's always going to be contention, and that's fine, and I understand that. There's going to be a difference of opinions, and but if it's just a small group, small groups can be loud, and if small groups can come together with a plan, money, and an opinion that people will follow behind, then I would be open to that.
One of the things that I think is really important in this thing, any kind of election, is understanding the differences between the candidates. And I believe right now we have, 5 members are all Republicans, correct?
And 5 Democrats.
But running, in terms of incumbents or those who are in office now, it's a Republican-controlled council. What would you be bringing to the table that your fellow council members lack, that you feel could be value added? What do you think is the differential there?
The one thing that they don't have is I have 2 young kids who are in this community, and so I'm using different resources than they are. My kids were at Pickering Creek yesterday on a field trip, and we were using the YMCA for their soccer program. We see the county from a different perspective than those that don't have young children. And I also have retired parents that live in this county as well, and I know that there's a few that do have retired parents as well. But being able to see it from both angles, I think, gives a different opinion. Also, the fact that I'm from here, born and raised, and I think that gives a different opinion as well. There's some of them that have chosen to live here, and that's fantastic. And I'm very proud that what we've done created an area where they would like to come to live. But also, I've seen a history of what we have had. I remember when there were ball fields at different places, and now they've been converted to soccer or football fields. I remember and watching just small changes with the ice skating rink and pulling up the ice earlier and for the roller skating, and watching that transition. So there's a lot of things that I see differently, and I think that's what is a good perspective to have on there for a diversified council.
Do you have just certain things if you were elected, you just want to get done sooner rather than later? Do you have like a priority list of things? If I get in there, I'm going to make this the #1 priority of my tenure.
The budget was the main one, yes. And so 262, when the council voted to put that on the ballot, that was my main goal, and I was very excited. Here I am, I'm not even on the council, yet I'm meeting with 2 different groups who don't discuss things well, who always have a very different opinion, and I'm able to get them together to work together, then present that to the council, and the council voted on it. And that to me was success. I was very excited about that. And
for those who don't know what that is,
so that's adjusting the tax cap. So we're keeping the tax cap, but also there is going to be a raise of taxes. There's a 1% raise over the next 4 years, so that we can help build up the cash reserve that we need for some of the projects that we've already have planned.
This is the Laura Price.
No.
Okay.
So Laura, if you remember hers, when she came out in the newspaper, hers was different. It was 2%. This is just a flat 2.5%. So that, yeah. Nice. And then the other option that they had to vote on, it was either 262 or 263. 263 was 3.5%. So it's 2.5, or 3.5.
I see. And are there other things that are on your list? Because this is kind of completed, right? You approved of this decision. So what would be on your list when you start? What would be?
So I am concerned about our emergency services. Again, we're in competition with the counties around us. And when you look at the sheriff's department, I want to make sure that we're paying them as much as we can, and that they have a great retirement program. If they have to compete with the surrounding counties where they can retire 8 to 10 years earlier, that means that we're having older officers on the road that's going to increase the health insurance costs. So if we're able to reduce that end cost, allow them to retire earlier so then they want to stay here, and if we're able to save that money on the end and maybe provide $5,000 towards closing costs on a house or raise their salary so that we're more competitive, I think that would do wonders for the sheriff's department and reducing the turnover and keeping local officers here.
Yeah.
I don't like losing them to Anne Arundel County. I like having them in our neighborhoods and having our local officers live here and know who we are. I think that makes a big difference. So I'd like to evaluate that and see what we can do. I think Joe Gamble's doing a fantastic job. I'm very happy working with him. He's been very open to meeting with me, and I would like to see that. Especially since he's going to lose his house here, soon with Black & Decker. I mean, there's going to be a lot of change going on.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We've covered a lot of areas, but I always like to leave a little time for things that I didn't bring up that you feel would be important for people either to know about your candidacy or how you would operate as a council person.
Yeah. So my experiences here, I find a lot of value in. There's a lot of people who enjoy eating oysters. I've gone out and hand-tonged for them. I know what that's like, and I understand the pressure that watermen have when making sure that they're not over their limits, that they're doing the right things that they're trying to do for their livelihood. And when regulations are being put in place or voted upon, those are areas that I have more experience in it because I've done it. I've run a tractor. I grew up on a horse farm. I understand those issues. I also grew up in South Beechwood, in a small neighborhood with houses that were close together, so I can understand noise concerns from neighbors and Route 50. So that's the value that I bring. I'm younger. I've got young kids here using different resources than some of the current council members, but also just a lot of experiences that I want to make sure that my kids can have and the next generation can have.
Thank you so much, Frank.
My pleasure. Thank you.